Decades ago, the auto racing world sought to separate man from machine. The answer was IROC. Equal and matched cars, meticulously prepared to race, but with the mechanical advantage eliminated. Only the driver remains. IROC is a celebration of champions in its 20th season. 12 of the finest from 5 different disciplines race on 4 different tracks. It's the International Race of Champions. The True Value Firebird IROC Series is in a brand new venue, Charlotte Motor Speedway. Here's Jack Arute.
Paul, this is an historic night. That's right, I said night for the International Race of Champions. You see, for the first time in its history, the IROC cars will perform under the lights here at the mile-and-a-half Charlotte Motor Speedway. Lights totally surround the mile-and-a-half pavement on the racetrack, and lights right here on pit road as well. These specially designed Musco canister lights that take light from the canister, put it up into a set of mirrors, and back down onto pit road. It's almost like daytime. Now, it should help in terms of the racing conditions as well. There's no clouds, no sun to change the track temperature. So it should make the racing that much tighter.
Well, Jack, it is both special and historic to be here under the lights at Charlotte as we continue our celebration of the 20th anniversary of the International Race of Champions. This, of course, is round number 3 of the 4 races to determine the series champion. And when we take a look at the points, take a look at the top of the order. In this series that lately has leaned a little bit toward the stock car drivers, we've got 2 IndyCar drivers, Robbie Gordon and Al Unser Jr. at the top. Now, how did they get there? Well, we only have to go back to round 2 at Talladega, lap 5, when Dale Earnhardt was leading going into turn 3, and we find out because when the crashing and banging was all over, there were 7 cars parked on pit road and 5 cars left, and 3 of those were the IndyCar guys. So tonight may in fact be get even night. And Jack, I think it has the makings of a great rivalry.
Well, you talk about a rivalry. For the first time in the history of IROC at Talladega, it was top 3 finishers going to IndyCar, led by Al Unser Jr. But Dale Earnhardt, do you think the Winston Cup guys in their home territory are going to have something to say about these IndyCar drivers tonight?
I'm collaring him.
What about
shouldering him?
Is there a rivalry between the 2 of you at all? I mean, between,
sure, I want to beat him.
No, between the disciplines, between Winston Cup and IndyCar.
No, we're all racers.
That's right.
Got to seen him in practice last night. He was damn fast.
What's going to be the key for the both of you?
Get to the finish.
He's got the white car and I got the red car, and they both ran good at the last 2 races, so we're in good shape.
We're in good shape. You bet.
What about you, Al? Going back after that, did it give renewed enthusiasm to the IndyCar drivers that they performed as well? Granted, there was the lap 5 crash.
Yeah, well, I think we were awfully lucky to do what we did for sure, but you know, it was just one of those things where you know, the Lady Luck was with us, she rode with us, and that's the way it is. You know, tonight.
No skill getting through that wreck.
Tonight.
I thought there was a lot of skill getting through that wreck myself.
Tonight it's going to be a different thing. I mean, these guys have been practicing all day long in their Winston Cup cars.
Get out of here.
Well, believe it or not, it's a rivalry, but Benny Parsons and Bobby Unser, it's a friendly rivalry.
Well, Jack, whatever argument that Unser and Earnhardt may have, they better forget about it, because Bobby, Rusty Wallace on the pole, he's going to be tough to beat.
Well, he is, but I bet you when the flag drops, it's dog-eat-dog type of racing, because there's no drafting here like Talladega.
And we talk about the lights on this racetrack. I don't think the lights going to be a problem. The big advantage the stock car drivers have is the experience at this racetrack.
Well, almost all the IndyCar guys have driven under lights one time or another. But I'll guarantee you one thing, Benny Parsons, none of them have ever been to Charlotte before.
They got 100 miles to learn this racetrack.
Well, Benny, they're already rolling on Charlotte Motor Speedway. The 12 are lined up behind the Firebird pace car. Here is the starting grid in the inverse order of the points. Rusty Wallace from NASCAR has the pole, with stock car driver Mark Martin starting alongside. In row 2 from the Busch Grand National Series, it's Johnny Benson Jr. and World of Outlaw champion Steve Kinser. The 3rd row is stock car driver Jeff Gordon and IndyCar driver Scott Pruitt. In row number 4 from road racing, it's Tommy Kendall, and Terry Labonte from NASCAR will start on the outside. And in the 5th row, 2 very big stock car names, Sterling Marlin and Dale Earnhardt. And the 6th and final row, the big surprise. Those two IndyCar drivers starting at the top of the points order, but in the last row, Al Unser Jr. and Robbie Gordon. All right, so we're ready to go. 67 laps, yellow flags don't count. The Pontiac Firebirds now under control of the pole sitter, Rusty Wallace. Wallace and Martin, the front row. Wallace, the purple car. Martin, the silver car as they come to the green flag.
Boy, that was an even start, Paul.
Front row pulls away nice and even. First three rows are still running in formation. Now they sort out just a bit.
I think that's one of the nicest, straightest up starts we've ever seen in IROC.
And here comes on the inside of Johnny Benson in the cream-colored car and moves Rusty Wallace back to third spot.
As Mark Martin takes the lead, Benson goes into second place. Take a look at the move, too, of Scott Pruitt as he starts to close up with the front four.
Now, let's keep in mind there's not going to be much drafting, but they will get a little bit of help, Benny says, right at the end of the back straightaway going into turn 3. That's enough to keep them grouped up a little bit.
There we see that's the blue car we saw with Sterling Marlin trying to make a move on Kendall. Meanwhile, back at the front is Mark Martin, Johnny Benson, and Rusty Wallace, the top three.
White is at the front there. Mark Martin as we watch his silver car with Johnny Benson Jr. right behind him. Then Rusty Wallace on board with Rusty now.
Look how good the colors look at night under these beautiful lights out here. I think this is the nicest racing shot we've seen in a long time.
See just a puff of smoke as the tire hits the left rear fender down in turn 1.
How close they're getting to the wall there. Down into turn 3 now.
Nothing changes at the front of the field. The surprise is that Al Unser Jr. is still sitting back and is in a battle for last place. Gordon and Jr. have not been able to improve on their positions at the back of the field.
And you wonder about racing that night and how the drivers, how difficult it would be to see. We can see that the visibility is very, very good. Lighting here at Charlotte Motor Speedway is great. There's the battle you were talking about for last place, the white car, Al Unser Jr., and the dark green of Robbie Gordon.
And look at that red car right in front of him. That's Dale Earnhardt. He hasn't come up any either. Not as much passing in the back as we thought there would be.
So Dale Earnhardt sitting just ahead of Al Unser Jr. as we look from the top of Jr.'s car, and they flash across the stripe once again.
Now watch, this is going down into turn 1. You can see this is what the drivers see. Look at the sparks coming out from under Dale Earnhardt's car. They're the red one, just ahead, a little out right there. Coming off of turn 2, the back straightaway, which is the only straight place on the racetrack. Now we're coming down into turn 3. There's Dale working down the bottom there.
That's Sterling Marlin right in front of him, and Earnhardt tries to get on the inside. Can't quite make it. Looks like the lime green car of Tommy Kendall in front.
Coming out of turn 4 right there. Just a little tiny short straightaway. And then it's all the way you can see right there at the front of the start and finish line. Crooked everywhere but except the back straightaway.
Ability to get these cars through the corners. That's the key here. You're looking back from Dale Earnhardt now as they try, both the IndyCar points leaders, Robbie Gordon, and the white car of Al Unser Jr. try to play catch-up. But it is not working well as the leader of the race started on the outside of the front row, got around pole sitter Rusty Wallace. It's Mark Martin, and he runs all alone at the moment.
The International Race of Champions is brought to you by True Value, official hardware store of IROC and garages everywhere. Mobile Motor Oil. At Mobile, we've been changing oil for over 125 years. Monroe Sensatrack shocks and struts, making the road a safer place. And Pontiac, proud sponsor of the 1996 U.S. Olympic team. We are driving excitement.
I want to take you back a little bit earlier in the evening because when you think Charlotte Motor Speedway, you think showmanship. These were the driver introductions that Humvee Wheeler and his crew put together. They had banners, they had streamers that matched the colors of the cars. The crowd here was gigantic, and it was all pulled off with the usual showmanship, capped off by a fireworks display. Back to IROC action now. Dale Earnhardt has managed to move around Sterling Marlin. That's a look back from 8th place Earnhardt at Marlin. And behind them, Tommy Kendall has been falling steadily backwards. Al Unser Jr. has come forward in the white car, and Robbie Gordon is struggling to come forward as well. Mark Martin is still the leader.
Tommy Kendall went into turn 1 a little while ago, Paul, a little bit low, lost a little bit of momentum. Earnhardt went right by him. Little Al went right by him. He went back to second to last place almost immediately.
Earnhardt and Marlin come to work up on Terry Labonte now. He comes down inside Labonte, and we've got trouble. And Earnhardt's in it big time.
Oh, we've got several cars. There's Sterling Marlin, dark blue car.
So over in turn 4, several cars involved in contact. A couple, including Earnhardt. And there you see Robbie Gordon as he tries to limp back to the pits. There's Kinzer. You saw a brief shot of him. Heavy damage to the right front. Earnhardt says, no, this one is over. I'm taking it to the garage.
It's amazing that he can even drive that thing to the garage. Look how bad it's been.
You can see the camera
on board there with Earnhardt as he takes it all the way back to the IROC garage area.
Terry Labonte, some damage to the right front of his car.
So, and there you take a look at the 4 car of Sterling Marlin as he sits up against the wall. Robbie Gordon had a lot of smoke coming out of the cockpit of that car, but it doesn't seem to perturb him. He hasn't climbed out yet.
Well, he's still hoping that he can get it back together. When you see this many cars wrecked, the guy wants to stay in the race no matter what, because that's the point deal.
So 5 cars involved in this situation, 7 circling the track very slowly. Here's what got it started, Benny.
Looks like some contact between Jeff Gordon and Kinzer. And there comes Earnhardt right in the side of Kinzer.
There's Sterling Marlin running right into Kinzer. Kinzer really got a lot of hits right there, but I think, Benny, if I caught the film just right, it looked to me like Kinzer lost it. Got it spun out there.
So 5 cars heavily damaged. There's Steve Kinzer's car. Initial report are all that the drivers climbed out of their cars and they're okay. We'll update that should there be any change. But we've got some of these IROC Firebirds that are heavily damaged. Kinzer's car is witness at one point right there. Over on pit road, Jack Arute is with Jeff Gordon.
Jeff, what happened out there?
Well, it looked like Kinzer got slowed down there, and Pruitt went underneath him, and I was just following Pruitt, and I was down the white line, and Steve come down on me, but, you know, I saw he was coming. I was already committed, and about that time we hit, and we both went sliding. Luckily, you know, I don't think I had too much damage. I got a pretty decent car in a long run. Hopefully we can get these tires fixed, because they're flat spotted pretty good.
So it's a massive accident that seems to have affected in one way or another all of the competitors. We'll be back. Back at Charlotte as we take a look at what's caused this long caution. When first Steve Kinzer gets together with Jeff Gordon and Earnhardt piles right into the center of it. We've got a couple of different views from you, beginning with Dale Earnhardt.
And he goes blowing by Earnhardt and bam, right in the side of Steve Kinzer. And there we see Al Unser Jr. going out just barely touching the wall.
Now there's where little Al's left front fender went, but just think of the magnitude of that crash, how hard he was hit.
Here's on board with little Al. He ricochets off of 2 cars, comes down.
You can see all the sparks coming from all the cars practically that were involved. Look at there. People get lost. They don't even know where they're going.
Looking backwards from Terry Labonte.
And Sterling Marlin goes by with tires smoking, and Labonte gets hit from the rear and continues on.
And Jeff Gordon. Now remember, this is where the accident really began.
There we see Gordon diving on the inside of Steve Kinzer. Down in turn 3.
Right here he comes up under. Boom. They touch. Look at him going. Now what's happening behind is what you've already seen.
Incredible sound and pictures. Here's Jack.
What happened?
Oh, I just went in the corner there, and Jeff come underneath me. I don't know. I was coming down the track, but I didn't know he was there, and so, just one of those things. Nobody's giving anybody any room, I don't guess.
Another case needing spotters, ain't it?
It would help a little bit, maybe. I don't know.
Dale, things got awfully tight out there, and it's there's not a lot you can do from the position you were in.
No, and you know, I was just waiting for something to open up. Nothing opened up, and the cars are so twitchy. If you cut them too hard, they get out money. They're real loose getting in, and this really wasn't, you know, set up well, I don't think, for this racetrack. But, you know, that's racing. I mean, it's just 2 races in a row here in the IROC series. We've gotten wrecks, been in wrecks, and it's just, you start to question whether you need to be taking this risk or not, you know.
So, some cars out, some still with very heavy damage, some with some fascinating repairs, and we're ready to go back to the green under the lights at Charlotte. And this, very much like Talladega, could have an interesting effect on the points, though unlike Talladega, you have 3 NASCAR veterans, well, 2 NASCAR veterans, and one of their Busch Grand National guys up at the front as they take the green flag. And right away, there's a move for the front.
Rusty Wallace and Johnny Benson side by side, and Benson holds on to that second spot.
You know, Benny, it looked like he was just going to squeeze him until somebody had to give, and by golly, Rusty gave a little bit there.
So NASCAR drivers first, second, and third. And then the IndyCar driver, Scott Pruitt, sits back in 4th place now.
Back a little ways, Paul. Remember, drafting is not working here. So we have Kendall back there, and he's not gaining. In fact, they're losing just a little bit around.
So once again, early in the run, an accident has an effect on the point standings. But Martin continues to pull Johnny Benson around this track. Benson has been able to close in the last lap.
Exactly, he's closed up on the back bumper of Mark Martin.
But it's a tough track to pass on. Mark seems to get him down the front straightaway just a little bit, or the front turns, I should say.
Mark Martin, Winston Cup veteran, while at the same time, Johnny Benson Jr. out of the Busch Grand National Series. You look down on the front 3 cars as they make the turn into 3 here at Charlotte. And Al Unser Jr.
There we see the green car is Tommy Kendall. Now all the rest of the cars have been crashed. Meanwhile, back up front, Mark Martin, Johnny Benson, Rusty Wallace, and Scott Pruitt, the first 4 cars.
The only car unaccounted for now is Al Unser Jr., who is running all alone well back in the field. Also, Terry Labonte's out there, and he is running off of the pace, but both of those are trying to catch up.
And Jeff Gordon also is off the pace with an injured race car.
A lot of these guys that are just bringing up the back, as we well know, again, are just trying to stay there to collect some points. There's still another race left to come in Michigan. So points here are very, very important.
You know who you really have to feel for in all of this is the IROC crew. After Talladega, they had some 900 hours to immediately try and get all the cars wrecked. They're back in shape. Now they're faced with very much the same thing once again.
So now when they go back to New Jersey to work on these cars, they'll have about 12 wrecked race cars instead of 7. And we see, is that Jeff Gordon is passing Tommy Kendall.
Tommy Kendall, who was running fairly consistent at one point here, and Jeff Gordon, with you can see damage on the right side of his car. But Jeff is able now to begin to close up, and he'll be taking a look at Rusty Wallace.
I think what you find there is Kendall just doesn't have any experience on Charlotte. And as Benny and I talked a bit earlier, experience here is counts more than anything else. So Tommy Kendall's having a problem getting used to it. Jeff Gordon, who of course runs here very often, went right on by even though he has an injured race car.
Well, the injury on Jeff Gordon's car is really hard to tell. It's got a big black streak down the right-hand side. That, of course, is from the front left of Steve Kinzer when he got into him. But it really looks like about all the damage was to cave in the side of the car and put the mark on it.
Well, if it's aerodynamics just on the side, of course, that isn't going to hurt his speed, especially at this track, because they don't have speed here like they do at Daytona or Talladega.
Yeah, Benny, how much does aerodynamics make? Does it make any difference here at all?
It makes some difference. Of course, it makes some difference. As a matter of fact, NASCAR and the Winston Cup cars changed the rule. There we see Labonte, Terry Labonte, with a gold and blue car passing Tommy Kendall for 6th spot.
Now that blue you see in the right front corner of his car, there was the tape fender. That's all blue tape on there.
So the tape special of Terry Labonte moves out and around Tommy Kendall, who is struggling to learn this track as fast as he can. He was not among the group that we watched practice here last night when they had a special nighttime practice for the IROC competitors. Most of that time, by the way, spent trying to figure out exactly how to get the cars handling here. And you want a good example of the Dale Earnhardt style of intimidation? Everybody was complaining about running the car, so Earnhardt finally came out, climbed in it, took a couple laps, climbed out, looked at the other guys, waiting to hear what wisdom he would impart on how these cars could be corrected, and he said, perfect, walked away.
Now look at all the tape on that red and blue tape on the Bonnie's car there. He's really injured, but now that type of aerodynamics thing won't hurt that car very much because they've still got an even body flow going on. Whereas you look at little Al, he's got a left front fender almost gone. Now that's really slowing it down. That's like trying to push an umbrella through the air.
So the stock car drivers are dominating here at Charlotte with 3 stock car drivers in the top 3 spots. We'll be back. Back at Charlotte, nothing has changed with regard to position. Scott Pruitt, you see him right there, has begun now to close in on Rusty Wallace. Now we have of the 12 that started, 4, Kinzer, Robbie Gordon, Sterling Marlin, Dale Earnhardt are out of the run. And of the 8 left, 2 of them are IndyCar drivers, though Al Unser Jr. is not really in the fight. He's trying to collect points. And 1 road racer, Tommy Kendall. Everybody else is from NASCAR.
And we look back from Rusty Wallace's car at Scott Pruitt, and I tell you, Pruitt is trying so hard to catch Rusty Wallace. Coming off turn 4 a moment ago, he was up in the gray area, 4 or 5 feet out of the groove, but trying to catch Rusty Wallace. And it looks like he is catching him.
Yes, he's been gaining on it, Benny. I've been sitting clocking in between, and they're really gaining. Rusty sees that rose-colored car. Look at the rose-colored car right behind a Pruitt. Scott Pruitt has been doing well in the IROC this year.
He really has been doing a terrific job.
And if you look back behind Pruitt, another car that's closing in is that of Jeff Gordon. There's Wallace, there's Pruitt.
We talked about Jeff Gordon's car earlier, Paul, and I've been looking at it as it went by real close, and he has nothing bent but a door. And I don't think that's really hurting him very much because he's been moving up, as you said.
On board with Rusty Wallace now. Remember Pruitt just behind him.
Watch him go down in the corner. Let's see. Turns the steering wheel. Make it go left, baby. Go left, left. That's it. Now.
My gosh, Benny, you made that sound so easy. I think Rusty needs your help.
I don't think he needs my help. I don't want to be in there with him.
So Rusty Wallace continuing to try and hold off Scott Pruitt, who is charging up. Jeff Gordon has not been able to prove his position in the past couple of laps, though Scott Pruitt has narrowed it down to about 10 car lengths.
Rusty Wallace goes down to the white line, tries to stay as close to that line as he can. And we see the effort that Rusty Wallace is using with that steering wheel. Remember, folks, these cars have power steering.
Yes, he's really not struggling that hard, Benny, but it's being smooth. Being smooth is so important in all types of racing. And of course, that's what Rusty's trying to do. You can see how rigid he keeps his body and tries to not fight the steering wheel too hard.
Looking out the back of Rusty Wallace's car, there is Scott Pruitt, and he's continuing to close in. He's making up a little ground, Benny.
Just a few car lengths at a time, but we still got a long ways to go. This Pruitt will catch Rusty before the race is over. We will see a race between those 2 cars.
Just about the halfway point right here as Pruitt closing in on Wallace. Nothing changes at the front. Mark Martin has it all alone, followed by Johnny Benson Jr. The battle is back here developing at 3rd place as Pruitt tries to reel in Wallace.
And I think those gains that Pruitt is making, you can see the car on the left, a nice rose-colored car, is just gaining like in feet, troops, instead of car lengths. I mean, a few feet per lap. It's so hard to gain that. It makes one wonder, after if Scotty Pruitt does catch Wallace, what's he going to do with him after he catches him?
So now as we approach the halfway point of the 67-lap run here, Mark Martin is the leader of the race. We have 4 cars out as a result of the incident at lap number 8. Jeff Gordon is finally back rolling on the circuit, and we focus on a battle between IndyCar and stock car. Rusty Wallace in car 12, the original pole sitter, is battling for 3rd place, trying to hold off a charging Scott Pruitt from IndyCar.
A battle for 3rd spot. Rusty Wallace is 3rd. Scott Pruitt is fourth, and we talked about Jeff Gordon. He is our fifth-place car at this moment.
I'll bet that's the hardest gaining that Scott Pruitt has ever done in his racing career, trying to gain a few feet a lap on Rusty Wallace. I'll bet she's wondering what he's going to do when he does get there.
Wallace with his hand out the window.
He's trying to get some air inside the cars because these cars do not have all the air ducts that normally their regular cars have to get that air inside. So he's trying to get a little fresh air in the car on the straightaway.
What Benny's saying, Paul, is no air conditioning on these cars. The Firebird people forgot to put them in here.
The Rusty Wallace continues to try to hold off Scott Pruitt. Al Unser Jr., you're tracking him. Forget it. He's way, way back and losing ground. Also, Tommy Kendall doing the same thing.
You see that red switch on the instrument panel of Rusty Wallace's car? That's a master electric switch. If they wanted to turn all the power off of the car, just flip that off and loses all power. In case of a fire, electric fire, they would turn that and then stop the fire.
For example, Benny, if he had a real bad wreck and God forbid he got upside down, that's one of the first things you'd shut off, because without electric, you can't light things on, so that's a place where you go.
Yeah, but let's look here. Now, Rusty's on his way down the backstretch, turning into 3, but the lights just went out on a section of the track coming out of 4. Let's see how much effect it actually has.
They did go out. There's a section all along that new grandstand that Charlotte Motor Speedway put in last year. All the lights are out.
But guys, if you look at the racetrack itself, it isn't bad. And as many laps as they turned here already, they're going to get through there all right. Now the big question is, are more lights going to go out? That could be the problem.
And looks like he's gained a few more feet. We talked about he was gaining a few feet at a time. It looks like he has gained just a few more feet, Bobby.
And he's going to get a little bit of draft. Remember, we're gaining in feet, Benny, instead of car lengths, right? So he is going to, when he gets this close, especially going down the back straightaway, he's going to pick up a little bit of draft, so he should gain a little bit more, a little faster.
Rusty Wallace still in 3rd place. Mark Martin, the leader of this run. And the IndyCar battle focuses between Scott Pruitt and Rusty Wallace for 3rd. For 3rd is really heated up now as Pruitt's parked right on the back end of Rusty Wallace.
Bobby, you said, what's he going to do when he catches? What do you think? What is he going to do?
He's going to have to get some adrenaline going, Benny, because remember, Scott Pruitt doesn't have any experience in this track. I just wonder what Rusty's thinking. Does he think that Scotty can pass him, or does he think that, hey, that boy's just going to be back there, I'll kick him a little bit?
The other question would be, what is Rusty's job in the mix? He's 3rd place, but he's about a straightaway back from 1st and 2nd, Mark Martin and Johnny Benson. So is his job really to sit here and fight with Pruitt right now?
You know, another thing that could be happening, Scott Pruitt is a very good race driver. He could have been thinking of all these laps that he's been just gaining a foot or 2 foot at a time about what he's going to do when he gets there. So maybe he's got a game plan. We'll see. That's Rusty Wallace in the 12, the blue car. Scotty Pruitt right there in the beautiful rose-colored car.
Now, gaining is one thing. Passing is an entirely different situation.
Especially at this racetrack. I think Benny Parsons, who's got such a tremendous amount of races at this track, can tell you it's a tough place, right, Benny?
It's a very, very tough place to pass. And now Scott Pruitt, it looks like, has lost a couple of car lengths in this last lap. He seemed to have trouble down in turns 1 and 2 last time, but not this time. He's able to close up almost on the back bumper of Rusty Wallace.
But you know, sometimes if you get close enough, it'll wash out the front end of the car. Like it could be the Scotty's car just pushing when he gets right there. In fact, I can watch. He's trying to run underneath Rusty all the time. Could be he's got a little push there, Benny.
He's got a run on him right here, Bobby. He's alongside.
Pruitt moves to the inside, gets alongside Wallace. Can he force that nose ahead? Yes, he does.
Boy, now we didn't know how that pass was going to happen, but we saw it. Scotty had it figured out all along where he was going to do it, I think.
So Scott Pruitt from IndyCar moves into 3rd place. Front of the track is still Mark Martin, Johnny Benson, 2 NASCAR drivers. But Scott Pruitt is very definitely making the IndyCar presence felt here.
Danny, you got to admit that was one good, calculated pass.
You know, it's not only a great pass, but the last 20 laps have been, Scott Pruitt has been doing a fantastic job for 20 laps, gaining and not trying to get over his head and crashing, just taking his time and finally reeling him in and passed him. My hat's off to Pruitt.
But you got to admit, Benny, we didn't think after he got there that he was going to be able to pass Wallace. I mean, Wallace, who has a tremendous amount of experience here, Scotty with virtually none, and yet he did have something in mind.
Yes, he did.
When you look at the cars, once again, the numbers on the cars, indicate their position in the points fight as they came here to Charlotte. So you can see Scott Pruitt is really a mid-pack points guaranteer, while at the same time Rusty Wallace came into this at the bottom of the point standing, so he needs every point he can get. The leader in the points coming here, Robbie Gordon, he's out of the race. Dale Earnhardt was third in the points. He's out of the run. So points at this race have now become absolutely critical, and that explains why somebody like Al Unser Jr., who came here second in the points, is continuing to stay out and try to motor around.
You have to give special credit to the IROC crew, who not only builds these cars over the winter, but maintains them and keeps them equal throughout the year, Jack.
When IROC left Talladega Superspeedway, there wasn't a single car in their stable that wasn't bruised, battered, broken, or bent. 900 man-hours later, by these gentlemen, and all cars are back, not only race ready, but picture perfect. That's the kind of work that the IROC mechanics engage in.
And you know what? After the lap 8 incident, they're going to have to do it all again. Al Unser Jr., he's now been lapped by the leaders of the race, at least by leader Mark Martin. Johnny Benson Jr. is coming around. That's Tommy Kendall up ahead as well, too. The road racer's been having a problem trying to figure out this circuit here at Charlotte. So you ride on board with Al Unser Jr. taking a look at the leader, Mark Martin, followed by Benson and then Scott Pruitt. We'll be back with more from Charlotte.
Back under the lights at Charlotte, round 3 of the 20th anniversary series of the International Race of Champions, as Johnny Benson Jr. moves out and around road racer Tommy Kendall. Benson right now runs in second place behind this car, the silver car of Mark Martin. And Martin has been dominant in this run thus far as we begin now to watch the laps roll down toward the 100-mile mark. The real battle has been back at third place, occupied for a while by the pole sitter Rusty Wallace, finally overhauled by IndyCar driver Scott Pruitt. In the battle between IndyCar and NASCAR, well, obviously, NASCAR is dominating the first 2 positions, and Pruitt is trying to do what he can to salvage the third position and hang on and keep Rusty Wallace at bay. One other interesting consideration is the lights on the grandstand just outside of turn 4. Well, it just went out a few laps ago, and they remain out. But they've taken a look at that situation in race control, and they say it is continuing to be a safe racetrack as Mark Martin now closes up on Terry Labonte. You look out the back of Labonte's car.
You know, Mark Martin is led. There he went right on by, no problem. And I was just going to say he's led every lap of this race, but he's done it very flawlessly. And if he's caught these cars and lapped them like he just did on Labonte on the right side of your screen there, he does it so easy, Benny. He just glides by them.
He certainly is. And we talk about Mark Martin. He's led a race. He has a lot of experience at this racetrack. I got to give a call to Johnny Benson, the fella's running second. He's a rookie in the Winston Cup Series. He is here because he was the champion. Look at that car backfire there.
Yeah, look at the flame coming out there.
It's when he backs off the gas going into the number 3 turn in that particular case. He gets a little fire out the exhaust there.
Power and handling are the keys to winning races, and shock absorbers are the key to handling. Here's Jack Arute with our True Value Mechanics of Racing.
The first step on getting the tires to remain solidly on the racetrack is by utilizing the right springs for the right track. But if you just used a spring, it would bounce up and down uncontrollably. So you have to introduce to the suspension geometry a shock absorber. Now they're either fluid or gas filled, and it controls with this piston up and down the movement of the spring. Now you put those on a car and you can dial the car in initially with the choice of springs. Kind of like taking the clicker on your remote control and finding the right channel. But by changing the valving on the shock absorbers, you can fine-tune the race car. And that's critical in IROC competition, where you want cars not only to be perfect, but identical.
Back to the front of the field now. There is second place, Johnny Benson Jr. for the Busch Grand National Series. And there is the interval up to leader Mark Martin.
Am I seeing things, or is Johnny Benson gaining a little bit on Mark Martin?
No, he just might be.
Or is it the fact that the laps are winding down and Mark Martin is backing off a little bit. But I believe that Benson is, in fact, gaining on Mark Martin.
Yeah, whatever it is, that gap is very definitely closing. By the way, Jay, you see the relationship between the two as they go down the backstretch. And by the way, the crowd here has just been spectacular. Without question, the largest crowd ever to witness. Look at them there. And they are staying right in their seats. And in fact, we're standing up for the early laps of this run.
One of the most enthusiastic crowds I've seen, Paul.
You see Benson as he tries his best to take that Firebird up on the back bumper of Martin. Now it looks like it might have stabilized.
Yeah, maybe about the same.
I really don't think he's got it, Troops. I think that Mark Martin has really got this race figured out. He's got this track figured out. His car is handling to suit him. He's just been flawless, and I'll bet you he's got a little bit extra if he had to have it.
So Mark Martin still out in front. Can he hold on to it? Can Johnny Benson Jr. run him down? What about the continuing battle between Wallace and Scott Pruitt? We'll be back for the checkered flag after this. Back round number 3, the International Race of Champions under the lights at Charlotte Motor Speedway. You just got a glimpse of the leader who has been out in front right from the green flag, Mark Martin. He's being chased by Johnny Benson, the 10 car. And Benson was appearing to close in for the last several laps, but now, well, it actually seems like Mark Martin has actually pulled out just a little bit on Benson with 5 laps now to go in the run.
There's no doubt about it. Mark Martin has been the class of this field. I mean, in spite of all the wrecks, all the damaged cars, Mark has led every lap. He's just passes the cars so easy. Just looks like he had it made tonight.
Advantage of being the leader. He was in front of the accident.
Yes, the accident happened in the battle for 4th spot. So the cars, the 4th and 5th place cars of Jeff Gordon and Steve Kinzer crashed, and then the cars behind them started piling in. So the first 3 cars, the only ones to miss the accident.
And still, that shot that Earnhardt took as he just went head on into that accident, that was something to see. Little Al came bouncing down behind and ricocheted off a couple of cars, but he's managed to keep his machine out there way back, and he's been lapped by the leaders, but there are points there, and that's what Little Al is after. Again, the relationships, you can see the lights out on the top of that turn 4 grandstand between first Mark Martin and second Johnny Benson.
Now Benson is not going to catch him. I thought a few laps ago he might have a chance, but he is not. He might as well just settle in, accept what he can get, which is 2nd place, and be happy with it.
I think Benson picked it up a little bit, Benny, but I think also Mark Martin had a little bit of reserve, and he picked it up too. Well, pizza boy not take a run on me.
At the same time, any fight that you may have hoped for between Rusty Wallace and Scott Pruitt has broken off. In fact, they occupy about the same interval of separation as first and second do, while at the same time they are well back from that battle for the lead. As we watch Mark Martin, Terry Labonte continues to get his injured car around here with all kinds of colored racers tape all over the car just to keep it holding together.
Showed you that racers tape does pretty good, Paul, because there's not very much of it that's blown off through this entire race. Good tape they used.
There's Mark Martin. He'll be looking for the white flag. 1 lap to go as he flashes across the stripe. 1.5 miles. Benson chases him. Nothing changes in the rest of the order. So Mark Martin is looking at victory here as he heads down the backstretch. That early on accident not having any impact on his run whatsoever, but having quite an impact on the points fight, as once again you see the interval. First to second place. Mark Martin makes that final turn for home. Comes down in front of the crowd here. They come to their feet. They love the run. And Mark Martin takes the win. Followed by Johnny Benson Jr. And I'll tell you what, he came into this race 11th in the points, and that's really going to help out.
And Paul, the lights came on down on the turn 4 at the same time the checkered flag fell.
So as we look at Terry Labonte, Mark Martin has been the dominant power here in the very first IROC run in Charlotte. When we come back, we'll be talking with him. Well, Mark Martin has taken his first IROC win outside of Darlington. Here's Jackaroo.
Well, Mark Martin, congratulations. That was a good Friday night drive.
Yeah. Well,
It was a good race car and a good racetrack for us. And they started me in the front because we've had so much bad luck all year. And then half the competition was eliminated, kind of like Talladega, only I was in the wreck last time. So, you know, I just didn't feel like we had a great car and didn't feel like we had a lot to race. But unfortunately, I was caught up in a wreck like that at Talladega, and we're next to last in the points coming into this thing.
What about the performance of the Firebirds on the mile-and-a-half Charlotte Motor Speedway?
Man, it's awesome. This is a great race car, and drove really good tonight. It got looser toward the end, and so I decided to get all the distance I could get, just in case something went wrong, you know.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So here's the order of finish, with Mark Martin taking the win, followed by Johnny Benson Jr., Scott Pruitt able to move up into third place, and Robbie Gordon starting and finishing 12th. Here's Jack.
Hey, not bad for a rookie in IROC.
I'll tell you what, man, you know, that was a good run. I was pretty happy with that. And Jay and Barbara and all these guys, what an awesome job they do with these cars. And pretty equal. I mean, Mark was good, a little bit better on the long run. I mean, I was good there for a couple, 2-3 laps, and then his car would seem to pull away just a little bit, and then it kind of just stayed there. So, but he gets around this place pretty good, so we're really happy with second place.
Johnny Benson Jr. Here are the points now, with Robbie Gordon and Al Unser Jr. still at the top. Mark Martin in third place, followed by Labonte and then Dale Earnhardt. Finishing third here, Scott Pruitt.
Have you ever worked so hard to gain a position in your life?
Oh man, I'll tell you what, at the start of the race, the car was so loose, I was just chasing it. I managed to get Kinzer up coming off of 2, and then we ran down the back straight, so I fortunately missed all that. But after that, it looks like Rusty was starting to have problems with his car. It looked like it tightened up, and that gave me the opportunity to get underneath him. But it took me a while to really learn how to try and make that move. I mean, I kind of worked him a little bit, and, you know, this is all new for us, and it was fun. Had a great time.
You didn't gain by car lengths, you gained by inches. How important was patience during that run when you started to reel them in?
Played a big part. I talked to a number of guys, Jeff Gordon, I talked to him a little bit, Sterling, talked to him a little bit. He says, you know, be real careful, don't overheat the right front tire, be real careful, and that's what I did. That was my thought going into it, just to stay off that front tire. And then about halfway through, then I started working the car more, and the car's come back to me and ran pretty well.
3 down, 1 to go to determine the best of the best. And you'll see that final round right here on ABC Sports on September 15th. It'll be at Michigan International Speedway, a track where both stock car drivers of NASCAR and the IndyCar drivers race twice in a year. So it'll be a great finale as we continue our celebration of this, the 20th anniversary of the International Race of Champions. Congratulations to Mark Martin, who takes the first IROC win at night and the first run at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
The International Race of Champions has been brought to you by Pontiac, proud sponsor of the 1996 U.S. Olympic team. We are driving excitement. Dynamax Performance Exhaust Systems, engineered by Walker. Armor All Vinyl Siding Wash makes your dirty vinyl siding look great again. And True Value, official hardware store of IROC and garages everywhere. Monday on ABC Sports, the Dallas Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs are heading south of the border. Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman lead the Cowboys into Mexico for an NFL preseason special against the Chiefs. Live coverage kicks off at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific time. Now stay tuned for your local news and World News Saturday over most of these ABC stations. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television.